This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead, the last Sunday of 2013. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we're back. Seth Merrill from Equidaily.com, Steve Bick from Sirius and XM's At the Races. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Happy New Year.
And before we do anything, I just want to tip my cap to you because when we were in last week, you headed out of the studio and into the parlor last week for the Steve Bick bankroll. You had some trepidation. It's always a question mark whether it's going to be your day. And I will say this, I was following, they were posting the tickets on the website, so I was following at home, and it was a lot of fun because it was a very chalky day at Aqueduct, but you came away with a profit. You hit the early pick 5. I think you hit both pick 4s. Yeah. And then you also were playing at Gulfstream, and I have to say, it was a cagey double bet you had at Gulfstream in about the middle of the card, a little $100 double in there.
It was more. It was big. I took an all with 2 horses that were both going to be 9-10 to 1, and got the Brian Lynch horse that just demolished that field, and that paid 130, and we had it. I think we had it 3 times, or I think one and a half.
Yeah, yeah, $3 ticket.
The one that hurt a little bit was we had those scratches in the East View, and so everybody landed on the favorite, and then the favorite wins, and it depressed the pick 4 payout. Yeah. Would have been probably another $300. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun, and happy to send everybody home with a little bus fare home.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Everybody got
and like I say, it was fun to follow at home. The pick 5. You were alive to 4 horses, and 2 of them were playing 4 digits.
Yeah,
so you were alive to a couple of decent ones, but it was just a chalky day. Exactly. So to come away with a profit on a day like that, it was a nice job.
It was fun.
So yeah, hopefully everybody had a good time. Some of the news from the past week, do want to touch on, of course, New Year's Day being retired due to injury. So the first casualty on the 2014 Triple Crown Trail, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, goes to the sidelines.
Yeah, this was too bad, and it seems like it's just a chip, but it's a sesamoid, and it's in a bad spot. And so Gary West, the owner, just said, you know what, this is not going to. They could wait, 6 months and come back and not have him right. So they just went ahead. And Baffert, I think, is very disappointed because Baffert thought there was tremendous upside yet for this horse, that he was, just obviously the 2 starts. And, I think this is going to hurt his chances for the Eclipse too, Seth.
I wondered about that.
I think it absolutely will hurt his Eclipse chances because people will now be instantly dismissive of him, and that they'd rather vote for shared belief probably at this point, knowing that he's going to go on and start the year as a 3-year-old next month. So,
although there are 3 published Eclipse ballots out there so far, and they all have New Year's Day on top.
Really? Who were the 3?
Jenny Reese, John White, and Tom Jica on HorseRaceInsider.com. They've published theirs so far.
Tom Jica?
Okay. And also, Summerbird passes away in Japan this past Tuesday of colic. Summerbird, the 2009 Eclipse winner, also in the Belmont Stakes that year. And
from that era, from that period, I got very close to Tim Ice, and he was pretty devastated. I heard from him later that day, and he took it hard. You train a champion, start your career as a trainer with a horse like this. He was an incredibly cool horse to be around, Summerbird. And my first introduction to him, he was in the stakes barn, the 42 and 43 at Churchill. and there's always a ton of commotion. And of course, it was the only horse that Tim Ice had at Churchill. And they had Summer Bird in the last stall facing Longview Drive, Longview Road on the backside. And there's cars, there's activity, there's tumult, there's camera crews and this and that. And when I went to meet Tim Ice, who I had on the show, Summer Bird had come back from his gallop, and he had been bathed and put back in the stall, and it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, so there's a ton of horses going in and out. Summer Bird had lied down in his stall, and he had his head under the webbing, like right where horses are, and he was laying there like this, and then horses would go by, and he's just watching horses go around. I've never seen a horse do that. I mean, and I said to him, I said, what's the story with this horse? He said, nothing bothers him. He said, he just takes it all in. And I thought that was amazing, because it was usually, a horse would be agitated. He's laying down 20 minutes after his bath and just resting. And that's a sign of a horse that knows how to take care of itself. He took Tim Ice on an amazing run. The Belmont, the first, to win the Belmont, the Travers, and the Jockey Cup Gold Cup. He joined a very elite group. This was very sad.
Yeah,
news.
only 7 years old. So.
Yeah, very tough.
Head back to Thursday, opening day at Santa Anita. 30,000 show up.
Nice crowd.
Nice opening day crowd there. And I got the 2 stakes races from opening day. Why don't we look at them here? And not only for the horses, I thought the jockeys in both of these races were kind of interesting. First up, we'll watch the stretch run to the Malibu. We're going to watch Shaking It Up upset this one, 17-1. Shaking It Up is the number 2 horse. Favorite in here was Flashback. Flashback is going to run 4th. But again, I said the jockeys were kind of interesting. Shaking It Up, the number 2 horse, gets the job done in here. David Flores on board. And Steve, I found the David Flores story interesting because he moved his tack down to Fairgrounds, wound up getting teamed up with Steve Asmussen, which I think has got to be a great situation. They're doing pretty well. So I was thinking this meet would end. He'd say, hey, Steve, where do you want me to go now? No, he's headed to Singapore. So he tips his cap to the United States with a nice Grade 1 win. But I found it very interesting that he decided to make that career move.
Absolutely. And what can you say about this performance? Flores was leaving, I think, later that night. Left for Asia. And this performance, I was on Central Banker. I thought it was a very clever spot to run.
Ran second.
And ran a great bang-up second in here. It's one of those situations, the longer priced of the 2. Actually, there were 3 Baffords, but this is a horse that Seth actually fulfilled one of those handicapping maxims that is really, I talked about this on the radio about 2 weeks ago. When you have a horse, male or female, and they're off from the spring until October, November, December, don't forget they're still 3-year-olds. And there may be quantum improvement in a horse between spring. He hadn't been seen since Sunland, right? And you get a horse that is grown physically and matured. So you're looking at PPs that say one thing about where, and people assume, well, he probably needs one. He may need one. That might be true. But his talent level and his ability level have improved significantly. And so that is one to file away. And a horse that fits the same profile that won this race, albeit at a shorter price, was Rock Hard 10. Perfect, kind of a little bit of a similar scenario. Because
that's something in my handicap too. 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds. If there's a gap in there, they're fairly lightly raced, but they come back after a gap like that. I think there can be some added maturity. Absolutely. That again isn't in the past performances. The La Brea a little earlier on the opening day card at Santa Anita. We're going to watch the number 2 Air Kitty get it done. Sweet Lulu, the test winner up at Saratoga this year, was the 4-5 favorite. Sweet Lulu, the number 1 horse, will finish second, but it is number 2 Air Kitty getting it done. And again, not only is the performance by the horse nice, but as I say, the jockey story's in here. Gary Stevens winds up this comeback year with a Grade 1 victory. And Steve, I know you've been touting him as a potential Eclipse winner. I would have a tough time pulling this. I think Javier Castellano's numbers were so good. But again, the ballots came out. Jenny Reese is on board with you. Jenny Reese is going for Gary Stevens.
I'll be honest, I'm going to vote for Castellano third. I'm putting Rosario even ahead of Castellano. Castellano had a very nice year.
Jenny Reese had Mike Smith second and Castellano
that's
third.
A little strange, but Castellano, I'm going to put Rosario second, Stevens first, and Castellano had a wonderful year, and all the wins and all, but it was a grinded out year. I mean, it was just, it was, good work by him and agent, oh my gosh, Mike, oh my God, unbelievable. I'm going to draw a blank on
Is he Salido?
No. So Salido's without agent. We should mention too that without his Jock, with Alvarado hurt.
Oh, right. He's surgery on the broken ankle.
He's going to be out. He's going to be out a good, at least
from what I
4
understand,
months. I mean, that is. It was three spots too. Not great. So anyway, but Stevens, to me, this was an interesting race because Sweet Lulu stunk. And I'm sorry, she had absolutely every opportunity. She had the rail, she had a pace advantage, and she was just blah, nothing special. And then when you went back and looked, I picked Air Kitty third. I tried to get My Happy Face in there. She also had no viable excuse. I think she's got either a breathing problem or a little something that is nagging at her. But Air Kitty was the fun price to use, and sure enough, wins, and Peter Miller, who does just a terrific job. This is a big win, and happy for Wildcat Air. You want to talk about an underrated sire. Wildcat Air is inexpensive, and all he does is throw good one-turn horses all over the place. Love Wildcat Air, Benny Perkins, of course, but good start to the Santa Anita meet, and of course, Santa Anita, they had to have a carryover right into the second day of the meet.
And speaking of Santa Anita, you called for a race here yesterday. A good-looking maiden win yesterday. Second-time starter. We're going to watch the stretch run of the maiden special yesterday. That was race number 5 at Santa Anita. Cherubim gets it done under Mike Smith at 20-1. And the price wasn't a surprise given the career debut, which was a little bit of a disappointment over at Hollywood. May have appreciated the move to the natural dirt surface, but Cherubim is going to be the number 7 horse as we watch this one. Again, a second-time starter, Mike Smith. Pretty impressive, wins off by over 3 lengths. But again, an upset win at 20-1.
Well, what was interesting about this, and we're going to show a graphic, I think, after this is over. This is a horse that I put in as a value play. You had Pimpernel, that was the obvious favorite, and ran an okay race in here. You had Chelios, the half brother to Old Time Hockey. But what was key here, and what I wanted to show, if we pull up that graphic, I tweeted yesterday that Andy Harrington, and I don't know if you can make this out, Andy Harrington has his product on the West Coast called National Turf. And if you've ever used workout reports, I don't think there's anybody doing this better than Andy Harrington. And if you can read that top line, his most recent workout, what Harrington said was, may like the dirt a lot more than the now departed cushion track at Hollywood. He also had said a workout after that debut at Hollywood sure looks better than debut. This horse was 10-1 on the morning line, but when he went off at 21-1, Seth, you jump on board. This is, these are the little gems. And people wonder, is it worth paying for Thoroughgraph? Is it worth paying for National Turf? The answer is yes, because it only takes one horse like this about once a month to absolutely put you, in the tall grass. I mean, it's just, or high cotton, or whatever the saying is. The canary in the coal mine. Parakeet in the cage.
I knew that was coming.
You knew that was coming. So I wanted to point that out.
And another angle there is by Henny Hughes. Henny Hughes is a good precocious sire, and a lot of times if you follow one in the second start after a poor first start, particularly with a surface switch like this, you can find some value there too. But again, we have Mike Welch coming up a little later on in the show, and his clocker reports are same
Absolutely,
thing.
Mike. Now the difference, and DRF has finally gotten on board. This is something they could have been doing for years. Welsh and Vesey, Vesey's up at Palmettos. Mike is at Gulfstream, and they're very good. The reports. I'm going to push them with Mike when he joins us next. They don't have as many horses. Harrington will have basically seen, he and his partners are at both Hollywood and at Santa Anita, and so virtually almost every horse in every race, as long as it's not a horse coming in from Turf Paradise or from Golden Gate, they've seen them. And I gush. If you want to follow him on Twitter, it's Clocker Andy. Andy Harrington's National Turf. I can't. I mean, if you're playing California, you cannot seriously attack the cards at Santa Anita without Harrington's opinions.
All right. Any other news you want to touch on before we go to the break?
You had the purse increase for the Belmont Stakes, and
$1.5 million.
You know, frankly, the people at the Maryland Jockey Club sort of stole NYRA's thunder, I think, because. In fact, this decision had been made quite a while ago, and when informed, somehow the Preakness people threw out that they were increasing their purse, when in fact Belmont, that decision had been made ahead of the Preakness raising their purse. I thought that was certainly appropriate. I mean, the purses on the 3 Triple Crown races, they deserve to be, upper in the upper echelon. And the Derby finally got wind of that a couple of years ago. They're still probably not. It's probably not even enough at $2 million. And the Triple Crown bonus. It's too bad we can't find an advertiser to come in and get back behind that Triple Crown bonus, because it would be. That actually would help motivate people to run in all 3 races.
All right, we'll head to our first break. When we come back, going to be Mike Welsch, and we'll be joined also a little later on by Andy Serling from the New York Racing Association. All of that right after this break. Stay tuned.
This is Steve Beck. Join me Tuesday through Saturday here on OTB TV for At the Races, my Sirius XM daily news magazine of the thoroughbred industry. Handicapping, interviews, analysis, everything you could want. 6 a.m., OTB TV.
Go Zepper kicking clear, and Go Zepper is pulling away impressively.
Hysterical Lady Ginger Punch to win it.
And it's Wilco in front, and he's going to pull off a huge upset here.
But it's Round Pond going on to take the distaff.
Awesome again. Sire of 10 Grade 1 winners, 4 Breeders' Cup champions, and 4 multimillionaires, standing at Adena Springs.
It's more than just a sports bar. It's Stadium Cafe. Located at 389 Broadway in Saratoga, it's the place to be for great times and great food. Their menu features everything from gourmet entrees to your favorite wraps and sandwiches. Or maybe you just want to grab a beer and catch the game. So what can be better than that? How about 2 Stadium Cafes? There's also the West Side Stadium, right up the road at 112 Congress Street. Same great menu, same great service. Whether you're hanging at the bar or just relaxing outside on their spacious covered patio, you'll always leave knowing you'll be back again.
We love, above all, the staff. We love Dave Harmon, and the food is fantastic.
Not 1, but 2. 112 Congress Street, 389 Broadway. Guaranteed to be a home run.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
We're back on Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning, the last weekend of 2013, right on the horizon here of the new year, and also on the horizon, Mike Welsch of the Racing Form.
How you doing, guys?
Mike,
happy holidays.
Happy New Year. Mike, going to talk about a few different things going on. I'm going to certainly bring up the very nice card on New Year's Day that'll include the first 3-year-old stake of any import, the Gulfstream Park Derby. But let's get caught up on what's been going on at Gulfstream here the last week plus since we last spoke. And yesterday, in fact, start with the Mr. Prospector.
Yeah, a huge effort by the winner. That horse has been a horse that I just kind of liked all along myself from the first day he worked back at Calder as a 2-year-old. We were just talking this morning. I think his first race he wound up hooking It's My Lucky Day and finished second first time out. He had some knee surgery during the spring and has come back bigger and better than ever. So I think we're going to hear from this horse sing another song, just stalked Star Harbor right from the outset and looked like he had him measured any time he wanted, and sure enough, he put him away and easily held off the amazing Fort Loudon, who ran for the third time in 20 days, and it was the best of his efforts in those 20 days. So he actually galloped out past the winner on the turn, so nice effort for Fort Loudon. Good to see him back on top of his game, but hopefully he'll get a little bit of a break right now.
Well, and this Sing Another Song, I think, Mike, we talked about this horse way back when it looked like he might be something. And so I kind of looked up and was watching the action, and I wasn't really paying close attention yesterday because of the wet weather and the races that came off the turf and whatnot. But the minute I saw him, I was like, oh, this is that Pellegrini. And very nice for Ron Pellegrini to get a horse like this, 97 buyer.
Yeah, a nice guy, too. I mean, he's a real gentleman. I mean, he was a little, he said after the race, he said, we were pretty confident we were going to win this race, and sure enough, they were right. So he's not quite sure what he's going to do next, but his goal now, he says, is to get him to the Breeders' Cup Sprint at the end of the year. So he's going to keep him in 6 and 7 furlong races, but he hasn't picked out the next one yet here. He's got a few to choose from.
Well, and then also the El Prado yesterday, and that was a thriller and kind of a clever front-end thievery a little bit.
Yeah, we haven't seen too many horses winning on the lead here over the turf course the last few days, but, Mr. Online figured to be in front coming off sprints and being on the inside, and wound up having just enough left in the tank. Unfortunately, Salto wound up getting hung wide around both turns, and by the time he straightened out and finally leveled out, he just had a little bit too much to do and just fell about a neck short of the winner.
Well, and Mike, while we're talking about the stakes of recent vintage, if we go back to last Sunday, was delighted with the performance of River 7 that we talked about, and I hope some people got on board.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that that he had worked real well on the main track here, and they wanted to see what they had on the main track, and they sure found out. I mean, he was just loaded leaving the backstretch, won the race with a quick move on the turn. There was really no contest down the stretch. Chaba easily second best, but no match for the winner. And I'm guessing this is going to propel him into a start in the Don Handicap. That's what his connections kind of indicated. They're not going to confirm anything just yet, but I'm going to guess from talking to him not only after the race but the following day, Nick Gonzalez looks like he's going to put this horse on a path to the Don.
Well, and Mike, we should also mention a couple of the 2-year-old performances of note. We certainly got a race today that I wanted to get your insight. Looking at that 4th race where we've got the sibling to Emollient and a few other pedigrees.
Well, the 4th race is off the turf.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right.
Emollient is going to go on the main track right now. Miss Leck is already out, but Chad Brown will have Rubindi in there, who comes off a pretty decent dirt effort. I think he's going to be the favorite. Calm Water is the sister to Emollient by Empire Maker. She ran a distant 4th after a slow start first time, but worked really well against an older stablemate here the other day, Lemon Point, I think it is. A horse that's won a couple of races on the grass already and more than held her own in those works. So, the question is, stretching out to 7.5 for the first time with only 1 6.5 under her belt. But, Rubindi faces the same thing, going from 6 to 7.5. They look like the best 2 in here.
Anybody off the main track onlys?
It's funny too. In the second race, we have one main track only who looked like he'd be a cinch if he stayed in the race, the 5-ace turf race. Now off the grass, that's Evolution Rocks, but he's been scratched. As a matter of fact, I just got a slew of scratches for the second race. We're going to take out the 2, the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 3 Bergerac also. So that race is down. But the main scratch, to me, the odd scratch is Evolution Rocks. It was entered dirt only, got dirt, and is going to come out. So the 4th race, at the moment, Miss Leck and the 10 horse are the only 2 scratches I have, but I'm sure we're going to get a few more there, too.
Well, and I want to mention a horse that's in that MTO list on the 4th race, and it's almost a little surprising. Top Spin is the 12 in there, Mike, and this is Rusty Arnold for Watts Humphrey, and this is a sibling of Center Court. And the fact that Rusty wants to try, this filly on the main track.
I don't think he's entered main track only. I think you're reading that wrong. The only main track only that's in there as far as I know is Rubindi.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
And of course, Rubindi's also a big sibling.
At the moment, though, Top Spin is in, but we're getting those updates now coming in on the scratches, so I wouldn't be shocked if he came out of here too.
Well, Rubindi is the sibling for Rubindi is Beautician, the McPeak filly.
Right. So, she'll be the horse to beat, I think, coming off that last race. But I'm leaning toward Calm Water in there if she just doesn't come up a little bit short in her second start.
Well, we'll watch for the changes in there. Mike, we also wanted to take a couple of minutes and get some of your year-end thoughts.
Well, looking back on the year, I guess the highlight of the year for me was watching Mucho Macho Man win the Breeders' Cup. Having him here all year long and the adversity he suffered last winter here to come along like that and to get good at the right time and win the race as he did in such game fashion. I think that's highlight number one as far as I'm concerned. For me personally, the Derby run and the Breeders' Cup run are always great fun. Watching Orb develop here last winter and going through the winter and then running to his works, running to his races, and winning the Kentucky Derby. For myself, I was happy to see that, and unfortunately, he didn't carry on the second half of the year. But now Shook's back with another one, so hopefully we'll see the same scenario repeat itself again this winter.
And Mike, I just want to go back to this last week and go on the human side. We talked a little bit about the horse side, but you had a kid, a 10-pound apprentice, win his first race on Thursday. Osorio, I believe is how it's pronounced. He hasn't had too many races, but he came back a race or two later and led at the top of the stretch with a bomb, and I thought he was going to get it done. That one wound up fading, but a couple of nice races for that jock on Thursday. Again, he hasn't raced too much, but I wonder if you have any thoughts on him.
No, I haven't seen him much. He's worked horses in the morning for Manny Espura, who's kind of an inscrutable trainer as far as we're all concerned here. He runs a lot of horses. He seems to run a lot of horses out of position. He runs them. He works them every 3 or 4 days. 3/8 of a mile here, 3/8 of a mile there. He's hard to figure. And then you look up and there he's in the winner's circle paying $38. But that's his main outfit right now. Again, I haven't seen much of him, riding, so I'm going to reserve an opinion there. Though I will say that the two bug riders who lost their bugs, though, Zayas and Gonzalez, seem to have made the transition pretty well. Coming over, and they've won some races. They're held in their own here, and as long as Calder stays open, they'll have plenty of opportunities this winter there. And Dylan Davis has ridden well here too. In the first few weeks we saw him. Now he went down in that spill yesterday. From all I hear, though, he is okay. He's come out of that. He was at the hospital for X-rays last night. I don't know if we've got a final report, but he looked like he's going to walk away from that spill without too much damage, and hopefully he'll be back to action, if not today, by Wednesday when we come back for the new year.
Let me ask you about one more trainer, just because I do the handicapping show here 5 days a week, and a couple of those days I'm looking at Gulfstream, and a trainer that I don't know what to do with is Giuseppe
I knew that's who you were going to ask me about.
Yeah, it's just particularly this year he's been loaded. He's only got the one win, I believe, at the meet, but he's coming in. A lot of horses that have been claimed out of town and moved in. He's a real head scratcher for me.
He's inscrutable. I guess if it describes Manny Espura, I guess Giuseppe's picture would be in the dictionary next to that one. He's got like 100 horses up there at Palmettos, or close to 100. He's got some scattered about here too, still at Calder and at Gulfstream Park. Yeah, he runs these horses. He claims them. He lays them up for 6 months and brings them back. Showing very limited work tab action. He's a head scratcher for the clockers at both places as well. I don't know what to say. His percentage has been very low. He did win the last race the other night with a horse off a long way after one wire on the grass, and paid $20-something. Again, just another guy that for the most part he's got a low percentage, and then you look up and bang, he pops one at a good price on you.
Mike, you mentioned, of course, the first of the year, and let's talk quickly about Wednesday, because the 2-year-olds will turn 3 at midnight, and right away at about 4:33 in the afternoon, the 9th race, the Gulfstream Park Derby, $100,000, 1-turn mile. Let's give a glance.
I thought it came up a little bit light. I'm not so sure. I'm sure we'll get something out of here that's going to wind up in the Holy Bull in a few weeks. But, The morning line favorite, I think, is going to be Stanley Gold's Best Plan Yet, who hasn't run since taking the third leg of the Stallion Series at Calder, the In Reality stake. You know, and in reality, he really didn't beat much over there. There was a lot of speed in here. There were a lot of horses stretching out off of sprints, trying to go a mile. Wildcat Red is unbeaten, unofficially unbeaten. He's 3 for 3 across the wire, although he was disqualified in his last start and placed second in the juvenile sprint. He's on the rail. He's got to go. I like this Ghana's Wind horse from Ephraim Loza. I thought this horse ran pretty well here behind Coup de Gras and High Kodiak Warrior going a mile in an A other than here. I think he might be a little bit of a sleeper in here. Todd Pletcher has Aaron's Orient, who's probably, even though he's a stakes winner, is probably a C level of his top 2-year-olds turning, well, now 3-year-olds. East Hall, okay. Pablo Del Monte, interesting, but speed and never run on dirt. You got Grand Arrival for Zito, General A-Rod, lightly raced for Maker. You know, these are horses that are all trying to make their bones in here. I don't think anyone except Best Plan Yet has really done anything out of the ordinary. So I think this is a very wide open race.
Well, Mike, we're ready to get the new year started and get the 3-year-old season underway in earnest. We'll be checking out the Clocker Report, drf.com/Clocker.
Yeah, we had a good one on there yesterday. Yeah. That first-time starter of Michel Nihe. We had some good reports on him coming out of Palmettos, and he delivered it as advertised there and paid a decent price as well.
Nice. Of course, you can buy weekend, all three, or get it still the whole bulk of the year. Mike, as always, appreciate it. Happy, healthy New Year.
Same to you guys.
You can follow Mike Welch on Twitter, DRF Welsh.
And again, the Clockers Report, which that was a nice horse yesterday. So I didn't realize
was
that.
Was it Nihe or Nevin?
I thought it was Nevin.
Michel Nevin.
I thought it was Nevin.
I think he said Michel Nihe, but it was Michel Nevin.
All right, we'll take our next break. When we come back, Andy Serling and the New York Racing Association. Stay tuned. All of that right after this. I'm Seth Merrill. Join me weekdays at 10 for Racing Across America. We'll look at important races from around the country, get insight from top handicappers and analysts, and preview the upcoming week in racing. That's Racing Across America, weekdays at 10, right here on the OTB TV network.
I didn't want to get just any degree after high school.
Horse racing has always been my passion.
I was already a lawyer.
When I was young, my dad took me to the races. The sound of the crowd. I still remember.
I'm 40, and I don't want to stay in a career I don't love.
I want to follow my passion.
Follow your passion at the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night school in the buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
We're back from Loose on the Lead. No, I guess we're from commercial. We're back to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrow, Steve Bick, always happy to have Andy Serling join us, help with our year-end wrap-up. Andy, good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. You know, one of the things I really enjoy about coming on is it gives Seth a chance to talk.
Here we go. I'm going to turn you over. Let me turn you over to Seth because I'm sick.
Well, I will jump in right now. Speaking in the new year, you got the calendar promotion coming up this week, right?
We do. Very excited about the calendar. I finally turned my calendar from September to December. Actually April to December in my office. driven on so long. And now I got to get a new one.
That actually sounds
That's
like
a good point. He's got the office at Aqueduct and the office at Belmont.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Well,
right.
I was going to say that sounds like the calendar in my kitchen, but I don't have that excuse. I'm in there every day, but I still don't keep up with turning the page. Andy, we talked just with Mike Welsch. We talked a little bit about a 10-pound apprentice that had won on Thursday down there for the first win of the career, and he mentioned a couple of apprentices that had just lost their bug and were worth keeping an eye on. I just wanted to get your opinion down there in New York. I thought when Emmanuel Esquivel came over from Chicago, he was going to be very interesting. Well, he's now run into Franco, and I'm just wondering, this winter, some nice apprentices there. Who's caught your eye?
Well, I think that Manny Franco's head and shoulders the best apprentice we have right here. I don't really think it's close. I mean, I think the most impressive thing, we've probably talked about it before, is that he came here, and when he first came here, Richard Migliore was sort of high on him, and I watched him ride because I obviously have a world of respect for Richie's judgment on these things, and thought he was awful. I said to Richie, I don't get it. You think he's good? And he said, well, he's a little raw, and I know he's not riding particularly well, and he acknowledged, he wasn't acknowledging. He acknowledged he wasn't riding particularly well, and then he went to Monmouth, and he got a chance to get on a lot more live horses, and he showed up in Saratoga a few times, and it was clear that he was just a different rider. And I think that's always such a good sign with a rider, that he adapts and he moves forward, and very clearly show that he's a talented rider. So obviously he's the best we have around here, and Wilmar Garcia is riding well and seems to be getting him back in the form he had before he was injured, but I think he's losing his bug in about 5 seconds, so I don't think he'll be apprentice much longer. As far as Manny Esquivel, he got a lot of opportunities from David Jacobson. His agent, Billy Castle, is close with David, and obviously with the connection with David Cohen as well. And you saw that basically Jacobson stopped using him, and he's struggled, to say the least. He's okay when he's been aggressive, but when he hasn't been aggressive, he has not been effective at all. We'll see if he can improve as the winter progresses. He's certainly getting chances, so we'll see.
Andy, got to talk about some horses that have impressed in the last week. And last Sunday, I'm surprised there hasn't been more buzz out of Mean Season's performance.
Yeah, well, I think that especially you get a little lull around the holidays, post Breeders' Cup lull, and still until the 3-year-old prep starts. So I think a lot of people aren't paying close attention, and a lot of people don't pay close attention day to day, and it's one of the reasons I try to bring some of these horses up on whether it's on message boards or we talk about them on Twitter. But clearly, Mean Season, a horse who was bought out of the Keeneland sale in November for a very surprisingly low $150,000. I guess he was part of one of those Stronach partnership dispersals. They don't have reserves. I guess that's sort of the way they're set up. And I don't know, he's a horse whose debut compared very favorably at the same distance to Cherokee Artist, who's a real hard-knocking horse in the Mid-Atlantic. And, he was devastatingly impressive in his debut for Bill Mott and his new connections. It just seemingly making the lead with the utmost of ease, just a very fluid stride, and winning off just for fun. Got a 105 buyer or something, I think, for that race. This is listen, it's just a non-winners of one allowance race, and you don't know what's going to happen when he faces significant speed or he faces some pressure, but he's clearly got a lot of talent. He's a very exciting prospect, as is, of course, Gary Contessa's Uncle Si, who broke his maiden on Friday. It's hard to keep track of what day is what day. Stretching out, going long. He'd gotten a 95 buyer in his debut in the mud, sprinting with a troubled trip behind groupthink. You don't know, is it the mud, sprinting, et cetera. It stretched him out. Got a 93 buyer winning with ease, and his number is very, very easy to justify, considering there were 2 route races with older, more experienced, talented horses in subsequent races. His time compared more than favorably to those races. This is a horse that, it's early, and he broke his maiden, and you want to see more and see what happens once again when he's faced with more pressure. But obviously, he's got a world of talent. We have not seen an unusual number of fast two-year-olds, soon to be 3-year-olds. He's clearly one of them.
And also from that same card, you had that Traskwood performance from Male,
actually. But, Male puts it in perspective, because Male buried the field, won by over 5 lengths, and while he went 40 yards further and going a mile and 16, sort of extrapolating, he went about 2 lengths faster than Uncle Si did. So, that really puts it into perspective, and obviously Male's another horse that Chad Brown is doing an exceptional job of bringing along slowly. He has a very, very good record with getting horses, especially routers, and sort of improving them from start to start. And I think no horse is a better example last year than Last Gunfighter, who he got in October as a maiden And a year later, he was fifth in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and he would have won the marathon if he had run that race, the race he was obviously more suited to.
Andy, before we talk about what's coming up on New Year's Eve and on New Year's Day, some nice racing. We got the carryover today, a very difficult sequence. But give us some of your year-end thoughts, highlights, the things that will stay with you for at least 10 minutes after December 31st.
You know, it's hard to sit here and break it down because you can always obviously talk about horses like Princess of Silmar, and I think in some ways she's kind of a star of the NYRA year, as we showed when we did her year-end review, because she was with us all year. She started out racing at Aqueduct in the winter and extended her supremacy throughout the summer and into the fall in some of the biggest races of the year, obviously. So, winning the Kentucky Oaks and the Coaching All-American Oaks and the Alabama and the Beldame, that's something that even the great Gopher Wand lost one of those races, So, though she didn't run the CCA Oaks, I don't think. But, it's sort of a tremendous achievement by her. And, obviously horses like Cross Traffic, I think you look at the Westchester and the Met Mile and the Whitney, he was a superior horse and unfortunately didn't run enough and wasn't around enough, but I don't think he should be forgotten. And we saw some, as we always do, we see the best horses in the country race here. But I don't know, I just think I love racing, as we all do, and so on a day-to-day basis, I just enjoy the sport.
Andy, let me just go back, speaking of year-end stories, one of the bigger stories was the disappointment last weekend, the closing of Hollywood Park, and I just wanted to get your thoughts there. Obviously, New York racing, the national racing scene doesn't work without New York. That circuit is the jewel of racing, but Southern California, Kentucky, Florida, to maybe a lesser extent up in the Chicago area, and Maryland also are key components. And when an iconic track like Hollywood Park goes out, it certainly has an effect on the industry. What were your thoughts of the closing of Hollywood Park?
Well, it's obviously sad. Hollywood Park is a great historical place in horse racing in this country, going back a long, long ways, and a lot of great horses have run there, and it is sad that it closed and how the sort of demise of Hollywood, and it's going to have a negative effect on racing in California, and racing in California has a great history, and I think losing Hollywood Park is a real loss out there. Santa Anita's now going to run an extra 2 months, and then Del Mar, I think, is going to have a meeting in the fall, and I think you lose that when you extend these meets, and so the loss of Hollywood is one that's really sad for racing. There are a lot of racetracks. People talk about how racing itself, there's too much racing or too many tracks. That's a reasonable argument, but I don't think anybody would argue that Hollywood Park was one of the tracks that needed to close, because Hollywood Park had a great tradition of racing, and we'll miss. I love the Turf Festival they had in the fall, and I think it's really a big loss to racing.
Well, no doubt. Andy, looking forward here to what lies ahead on Tuesday and Wednesday. There's even a chance we might have a double carryover on that Tuesday New Year's Eve card, but we start the year with a pair of stakes, and the affectionately a little narrow, but some nice horses in there. There's some excellent allowances on that card Wednesday as well.
Yeah, no, I finished Wednesday's card. I don't have it in front of me, but I thought it was an interesting card as well. I thought Tuesday was pretty good also, and you're right, we could have another carryover into Tuesday's card. Obviously, a mandatory giveaway. We had some scratches affect the card, though. I think that the thing about the Pick Six today is the first race. It seems like we've had some pretty random results, but it's hard to go past the 4 and 8 in the first, especially the scratch of Julie Knapp. And in the second leg, the fifth race, A.P. Chino is going to be an overwhelming favorite, especially given the scratch of the 4. I Want You to Know was the clear second horse. So I don't know. The sixth race I can't go beyond horses like the 1A who's running the one with scratch, the 4 and the 12. I don't like the 12. But I do think that after that it gets pretty murky. The seventh race, there are an enormous number of contenders in that race. Anybody, I think, towards the inside 6 horses could win. The eighth race, another race where there is a lot of contenders, and even the last race. I think the last race is a very hard horse to put your finger, or hard race to put your finger on one horse. So we'll see. I think it's very possible to get to the first 3 legs with a relatively chalky and logical sequence, but after that, I think it gets very tough. So if something odd happens in one of those first 3 legs, or even 2 of them, I think it'll be very hard to be hit. We'll see what happens.
Andy Serling, as always, we appreciate the visit. Wish you a happy New Year. Are you co-hosting one of the big network New Year's Eve parties in Times Square?
Actually, I'm doing it with Seth, and I'm going to let him talk.
The best.
So I get the count down.
He's the best.
I get the count
Andy,
down.
thanks a lot.
See you later, guys.
We'll watch
Happy
it.
New Year to everybody.
Andy Serling, everybody. There's nobody like him.
He's the man.
He is.
Andy Serling from the New York Racing Association. So head to the last break, and then we'll
Yeah,
do
take
our
a
own
break, and we're going to do our year
own
ends.
2000 year in review. Stay tuned. All of that after this.
It's more than just a sports bar. It's Stadium Cafe. Located at 389 Broadway in Saratoga, it's the place to be for great times and great food. Their menu features everything from gourmet entrees to your favorite wraps and sandwiches. Or maybe you just want to grab a beer and catch the game. So what could be better than that? How about two Stadium Cafes? There's also the West Side Stadium, right up the road at 112 Congress Street. Same great menu, same great service. Whether you're hanging at the bar or just relaxing outside on their spacious covered patio, you'll always leave knowing you'll be back again.
We love, above all, the staff. We love Dave Harmon, and the food is fantastic.
Not one, but two. 112 Congress Street, 389 Broadway. Guaranteed to be a home run.
Stately Victor, final furlong of the Toyota Bluegrass, runs right by Patio Prado. Alan Garcia and Stately Victor, a 40-1 upset.
Dinah Zappa holding on. Dinah Zappa win.
Horse of the Year Ghost Sapper, sire of 9 new stakes horses and 5 new stakes winners, including Grade 1 winner Stately Victor in 2010, standing at Adena Springs.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrow and Steve Bick in here on this last Sunday in 2013, and as it is the last Sunday, we've been taking some thoughts from our guests on highlights of the year. We'll give our own highlights of the year, and Steve, just to go through some. I said it on the Handicappers Report earlier. I thought there was some fluky fun stories. I thought there was human stories, equine stories. There were disappointing stories like the closing of Hollywood, certainly, but some things that caught my eye. I mentioned the fluky stories. There was the viral video of Spicer Cub, that crazy race, which I've seen again this past week a few times. There was the Brooklyn with Kaleidoscopio that I was talked about on Racing Across America a couple of weeks ago. That was a crazy race. On the human side, I thought Ken Ramsey and what he did this year was certainly incredible. That 3 Grade 1 win day back when he had the win at Saratoga and the Sword Dancer, the 2 wins on Arlington Million Day, that was impressive, as was his entire year. There, in fact, is Ken Ramsey accepting the trophy for being the leading owner up at Saratoga. Also, on the disappointing side, the retirement of Ramon Dominguez certainly stands out to me. The flip side of that, the retirement of Ramon Dominguez on the jockey side was the disappointment. The interesting thing, we mentioned it earlier, the comeback of Gary Stevens was so impressive this year. And we'll pop up a couple of videos here because I mentioned this earlier. I thought on the racing side, obviously a lot of good races, but I thought the 3-year-old year was very interesting. And we're going to pick up and watch the Fountain of Youth here from Gulfstream back on February 23rd. That was kind of the coming out party for Orb. So we'll watch Orb win here. Orb that day 5-1. Running second was Violence. Violence was the 3-5 favorite for Todd Pletcher. This was Violence's last race. But Orb gets it done here, then goes on to win the Kentucky Derby. Kind of old school, gets it done. Phipps, McGahee, but you also had Wayne Lucas in the mix in the Triple Crown events. I thought, well, once we got out of Saratoga, the 3-year-old division had not defined itself, and we were all kind of scratching our head a little bit. So we had some good stories, but about, again, August, you may have thought, well, not much of a 3-year-old class. Now we'll pick up and watch next the Clark Will Take Charge beats Game on Dude. So by the end of the year, I thought there was some definition to the 3-year-old class with Will Take Charge stepping out and saying he's the champion. And along the way, as I said, I thought there was, the old school with Lucas and the Phipps and McGahee getting it done, Gary Stevens being in the mix as well, Wayne Lucas with Will Take Charge gets it done at the end of the year. And then in the middle, we had horses like Verrazano and the Haskell, who seemed ready to step up and be a superstar. That didn't pan out. But again, the 3-year-old class to me was just very, very entertaining this year. So that was also among my highlights. On the news side, I think we're getting closer to uniform medication rules this year. That's been nice. The 10-year deal in Maryland, which was more right at the tail end of last year, but was kind of implemented. And Maryland seems to have rebounded very nicely this year. So that's been nice. And, of course, the disappointing story we just mentioned earlier with the closing of Hollywood. So for me, there were some of the highlights.
Well, and interesting, the one horse in the 3-year-old picture that was sort of one of the other plug-ins was Palace Malice. Was sort of that interim in between Oxbow and Orb, and then he picked it up, of course, with the Belmont win, and comes back with the Jim Dandy, and very well could have won the Travers with a better trip. And at that point, Will Take Charge and Moreno both emerged. So there was a real ebb and flow all year long to the 3-year-old scene, and I think it'll give rise. I mean, there has been, with the improvement, I suppose one of the other sidebars, Seth, with the improvement in the bloodstock market. And if you went back and watched our shows from 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when the bloodstock market was in the crapper, this is the flip side. With the market improved, a lot more horses are leaving the scene earlier and retiring and go to establish themselves as sires. So it's a double-edged sword. When the market's down, they stay and run, and you get the mucho macho men's and the flat outs and so forth. But when things are good, the 3-year-olds, they exit stage left. For me, I've got 3 video highlights, and for me, it was mostly a filly year. Let's watch Groupie Doll, and she's been one of my favorite horses, and I'm an unabashed fan of the Bradley family. And over the years, going back, all the way back to Brass Hat, have gotten very friendly with Buff Bradley and think the world of him. And the job he did with her, when everybody said she wasn't the same filly and time to move on and to turn the page, all he did was key her up for this effort, and she defends her title in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint under Rajiv Marat, and she is just a delight. And this was my highlight on the Breeders' Cup weekend, without a doubt. Tough not to get teary-eyed with this, with Buff Bradley. Look at her. Just stay the course here late. Rajiv staying busy. Judy the Beauty tries to get to her. That was one of the real highlights for me all year. At Saratoga, a couple of highlights, and I say fillies. We're not going to show Dance to Bristol. You talked about Xavier Perez, but Xavier Perez, when he wasn't navigating with Spicer Cub around starting gates, he was spending the year on Dance to Bristol. This is not Dance to Bristol. This is Sweet Reason. Leah Giarmati and Jeff Treadway's wonderful 2-year-old filly winning the Spinaway. And this, to me, when you get trainers like an Ollie Figgins and
the scene in the winner's circle after this race,
and then this with Leah Giarmati. I mean, it was so wonderful when you see people like this who work so hard and are just basically waiting for a good horse to get off the van now and then to keep hope alive. And Jeff Treadway's put a lot of money in the game. So this was tremendous, watching Sweet Reason and her maiden win, and then she follows it up with the Spinaway victory. Those were 2 of my highlights, and then Dance to Bristol, as I mentioned, as well. And then on a personal note, it was a fairly long time between drinks for us at Saratoga. We got our 2nd win of the year. My pal of pals just was tremendous on August 18th, winning that race that Junior Alvarado did a tremendous job with him. He wanted to lug in, and Junior, I can't thank Junior Alvarado enough. He won both races this year. We had 3 wins as a stable, and Junior did a tremendous job keeping him from potentially getting a DQ possibly. You'll see him right there in the middle. And Tina is with us today, and we were watching, and I knew right here, I said, he's going to win this race. And he explodes. There is no feeling better in the world than walking out of that building, out of that grandstand, down to the Saratoga Winner's Circle. It is unlike anything you can feel, and it's available to all of us. No matter what your level of player or investor, there's somebody out there for you that'll get you to the Winner's Circle at Saratoga, and do it. Make that our New Year's resolution to get involved in the game, because it rewards your interest and your dedication.
There's you and Junior, and a few days later on the TV show, I had Michael Dubb on, and Michael Dubb ran second that day. He said, "Well, if I'm going to run second, I don't mind running second to Steve." So, but my pal, your first, Sable was the first winner, right?
Sable, who's actually up at Stonegate Stables and ready to drop a foal in March. He's in foal to Macho Uno, which is kind of nice. And we've also got a second mare up there that was a rescue, that My Nina Rose, was saved out of the kill pen. And some of you might remember My Nina Rose. She won $300,000 for Gary Siaka, and was a hard hitter, an old-fashioned backyard-bred type New York-bred mare. She's in foal to Disco Rico. Joe DeRico went in with us, and we got a baby. They do an unbelievable job
nice
up there.
horses.
Oh, Disco Rico, another undervalued sire. But yeah, Sable was the first, and we're looking forward to a baby out of her.
And just before we wrap up, I want to mention some other ones. Jenny Reese had her Eclipse ballot, as I say, that was printed, and at the end she had, there is no Eclipse for this, but Sportsman of the Year, and then she listed a few, the folks were bringing Royal Delta back, the folks were bringing Princess of Silmar out to the Breeders' Cup. That was certainly a sporting move by them, and Princess of Silmar up at Saratoga, ultra impressive. And we'd given the Eclipse away at the end of Saratoga, but who could have anticipated, and by that time Beholder hadn't come back yet, who could have anticipated the run at the end of the year from Beholder? So it was understandable, but the Royal Delta Princess of Silmar also can't wind up the year without mentioning Wise Dan, obviously. That
Absolutely.
Was, and Charlie Lepresti doing so well. And Charlie Lepresti, and I've forgotten where I read the article now, but it's just the past week about Charlie Lepresti and what he does every year with Wise Dan, and just lets the horse be a horse. So it's Wise Dan out there. I think going out there maybe with Successful Dan. They're out in the pasture together, and he'll come back after the.
Well, and Charlie has said, on the show with us over the years, he and his wife Amy, who break yearlings, get them started for, among others, the Klein family, all of Steve Margolis's horses for Bert Klein and family. That's one of the things that is really old school about Lepresti. And people wonder about his success. Well, he takes the horses after Keeneland, and he'll wind them down. He might run them a couple of times at Churchill. And then he'll turn them out for the winter. And he'll give them, 4 months, 90 days, 120 days off. And that's the way it used to be. He used to send horses down to South Carolina and let them spend the winter there. That was a habit and practice, turf horses get a break. We've got toy cannons down in Ocala for 3 months, so they'll be back for next year. So that's one of the secrets to Lepresti's success. And you mentioned Eddie Stanko and his King of Prussia stable. He's got a flatter that is going to debut on Tuesday in the 4th race, a 2-year-old. This is another one that he bred out of Raise the Kitty. Her name is Queen to Be, and she's been working at Belmont, and Todd Pletcher, of course, has her.
And I like flatter runners first time out, too.
Yeah, 4-1 in here, but she is going to face some horses that have started, and this might be a fairly serious group.
All right. We'll wrap things up for this edition. And again, wrapping up the 2013 season. Thanks for everybody for joining us all year long. We'll be back next week, of course. But in the meantime, New Year's will be held. So happy New Year's to everybody out there. Have a great few days. Cash some tickets at the races. Plenty of great racing over the next week with the holiday being in the mix. So enjoy all the racing action. Don't forget, you have questions or thoughts, email us at looseonthelead@yahoo.com or visit our Facebook page. We would love to hear from you. Seth Merrill from Equidaily.com, Steve Bick from SiriusXM's At the Races. You're still on vacation, correct?
I'm on vacation until the 2nd. We're back live Thursday. Hope you've been enjoying the best ofs.
Very good. So have a little tea and honey and get rid of the cold. And I'm still working on mine too from Thanksgiving, but we'll work on that. Hopefully after the new year we'll be back healthy. Catch some tickets. Hopefully you will too. We'll see you next week for more Loose on the Lead. Tune in then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.